many times are our smartphone purchasing decisions full of trade-offs? You really want one feature, but you have to compromise on another. That's especially true when we're talking about sizes. Maybe you really like the pocket-friendly size of the Sony Xperia X Compact, but you wish it had the performance of the bigger Xperia XZ. Or what if you prefer your iPhone to the 4.7-inch variety, but can't help be a little jealous of the iPhone 7 Plus's dual camera arrangement? As a result, we were really intrigued earlier this month when we saw Google introduce its first two Pixel phones. Here were, what looked at least, like two smartphones alike in every way except for size, and features inextricably linked to size like battery capacity. We've already spent some time with the Pixel XL and really liked what we got to see. Now, will the smaller Google Pixel deliver in all the same ways as its big brother, or is this yet another small smartphone that just comes up short? I'm Stephen Schenk with PhoneArena, getting to the bottom of that right now with my Google Pixel review. The Pixel brand represents a new direction for Google's smartphone hardware, and maybe more than anything, it's one defined by its confidence. We're not looking at a phone that's a pure Android version of some existing handset, with maybe tweaked hardware and a new look, but something that's Google from the ground up. We see that in the phone's design. There have been plenty of metal-backed phones before, as well as tons of glass-backed models, but this hybrid look Google's thrown together for the Pixel is one that really manages to stand out on its own. That glass panel houses the Pixel's main camera, dual LED flash, and its autofocus assist laser, as well as the Pixel Imprint Fingerprint Scanner. On the right edge, we've got the phone's power button and volume rocker, and the left edge houses the SIM tray. Up top, there's the analog headphone jack. Google's not done with those, not yet anyway, and the bottom edge is populated by the Pixel's mono speaker and the phone's USB Type-C port. It's the same exact layout we saw on the Pixel XL, albeit now in a slightly smaller form factor. At least that's the case for height and width, as only befitting a phone with a smaller screen, and the Pixel gets a 5-inch panel to the Pixel XL's 5.5-incher. But this one's just as thick as the Pixel XL, and while that scaling of dimensions results in the smaller Pixel feeling comparatively thicker, it's still a very comfortable phone to hold and use. The 5-inch Pixel screen is only 1080 by 1920, unlike the Quad HD panel on the XL, but just like the larger phone, it's a bold-looking AMOLED component. That also means some not quite lifelike super saturated colors, but users looking for more balanced output can always engage the screen's sRGB color profile in the Pixel's developer settings. Even at this lower resolution, things still look very sharp, and honestly, much higher at this size might be overkill. Our opinion may change once Google's Daydream headset lands and we're really magnifying those pixels, but for now, everything's plenty crisp. Unfortunately, it's even less bright than the screen on the Pixel XL, and we already had some complaints there about brightness. You should be fine indoors and even in some outdoor environments, but really strong, direct sunlight will take its toll on screen visibility. While the display may be different here, the Pixel's armed with some of the very same digital hardware we find in the XL. That means the same Snapdragon 821 chip, same 4 gigs of RAM, and same 32GB and 128GB storage options. Performance is just as smooth as we expected from the larger phone, both subjectively and in terms of the results we got from synthetic benchmarks. Better still, the 5-inch Pixel seems to get a small boost over the XL in terms of its performance in 3D-intensive games, perhaps due to the lower res of the 1080p screen. After last year's Nexus 5 started at 16GB, it's nice to see a 32GB base storage level, and $100 extra for 128 gigs, while pricey, isn't really unreasonable compared to other phones. Maybe the only downside here is that the Pixel's SIM tray isn't a 2-in-1 tray with microSD support, but given Google's historic distaste for expandable storage, that move is hardly surprising. The Pixel arrives running the latest Android 7.1 Nougat. The phone may not continue the Nexus name, but it's got that same association with Android's latest and greatest software. We already got a taste of 7.1 with the XL, and it's just as delectable here. Beyond standard Nougat stuff like support for split-screen apps, the Pixel also picks out some cool shortcuts that make using it both fun and more productive. Want to take a picture in a hurry? Double tap the power button and the camera app comes up in the flash of an eye. And while the Pixel Imprint Fingerprint Scanner is mainly for user authentication, of which it does a fast, reliable job, the sensor also pulls double duty as a mini touchpad, letting you swipe down to access the phone's navigation shade without needing to touch the screen at all. One big component of the Pixel software is a new Google Assistant, which you can either access by long pressing on the on-screen virtual home button, or once you set it up to do so, speaking aloud "OK Google," even with the screen off. Google Assistant behaves a lot like Google Now in existing voice search, but aims to strike up a much more conversational tone with users, performing a back-and-forth discussion where it can get more information about your needs and deliver more useful responses. The implementation isn't quite as smooth as some of Google's demos would lead us to believe, and it can be tricky to speak just the right responses to get this conversational mode going. A little practice here certainly helps, and the more you use Google Assistant, the more you're likely to get out of the service. Google's really trying to sell the Pixel on the strength of its camera, which is the same 12.3 megapixel component we saw on the Pixel XL. We liked what it did there, and as we spend more time with it on the Pixel, we're coming to appreciate its capabilities more and more. It's still a little weak in really low light environments, but no matter where you're shooting, the fast, painless Auto Hdr Plus mode helps squeeze every last bit of color and detail out of your pics. At first we were a little put off by how hard Google's pushing that HDR mode. On the Pixel XL it was straight up impossible to turn it off and keep it off. We don't know what's changed, but on the Pixel it actually listens to your preferences and remembers camera settings. Honestly though, you're probably going to want to leave it on, it just works that well. The front facer's an 8 megapixel component that lacks extravagances like an LED flash of its own, but it still manages to produce solid pics in many environments. It gets the same Auto Hdr Plus magic as the main camera, though just like that one, it struggles a bit more than some sensors in low light conditions. No matter which camera you're shooting with, the Pixel lets you take full advantage of Google's cloud services with unlimited, full-quality backup on Google Photos. That extends to video as well as still pics, which is great because the Pixel also produces some really nice looking video footage. The primary camera supports filming at up to 4K resolution, but the real treat is Google's stabilization algorithms, which do a pretty impressive job at minimizing shakes and jitters, all without any optical stabilization hardware to assist. As we noted earlier, the Pixel speaker is mounted along its bottom edge and is a single mono component. That's less of an adjustment to make than with the Pixel XL, since the Nexus 5X already had a mono speaker, unlike the 6P, but we still crave stereo on every handset, and the lack of a front-facing speaker isn't great either. Luckily, the speaker here sounds almost as nice as the really well-balanced component on the XL, and our only complaint is that its bass tones don't sound quite as rich to our ears. Voice call quality may not be the first thing we consider when buying a phone, or second, third, fourth, we could go on, but the good news is that there's nothing to worry about here, with the Pixel sounding perfectly fine, not giving us any problems in our test calls. The phone's cellular radio has the same expansive band support we saw in the XL, as well as support for extra high-speed Cat12 LTE networks when your provider finally gets around to upgrading. With a smaller 2770 mAh battery to the Pixel XL's 3450 mAh component, we wouldn't have been surprised if battery life took a hit. Instead, our custom battery tests very much did end up surprising us, but for a very different reason. At about 7 hours and 45 minutes screen on time, the smaller Pixel lasted even longer than the big Pixel XL. Your mileage may vary, especially if you're not using the phone constantly or are engaged in tasks that don't illuminate the display, but it seems like the larger screen on the Pixel XL and correspondingly higher power demands effectively cancel out the bigger battery on that model. What's really cool there is that this is one more thing that puts the Pixel and Pixel XL on the same level, letting your phone purchasing decision really come down to the single concern of what size screen you want. Finally, after running that battery down, you're understandably going to want to get things going again in a hurry, and just about 2 hours on the included USB Type-C fast charger brings the Pixel all the way back up to 100%. We already really like the Pixel XL, that's no secret. So for the smaller Pixel, our main concern was whether or not the more petite hardware would result in any compromises to the user experience. And we're happy to say, for the very large part, that doesn't appear to be the case. Sure, the display could be a little bit brighter, but at least a lower resolution didn't prove to be an issue. Considering the $120 price difference between the Pixel and Pixel XL, and how similar the hardware is, the smaller Pixel feels like a lot better value for your money. It's still an expensive phone, don't get us wrong, but in a lot of ways here you really do get what you pay for. Extras like wireless charging and waterproofing would sweeten the deal further, but we'll just have to keep wishing for the 2017 Pixels. For now, if you're a big Android fan, and especially if you're a heavy user of Google services, it's really easy to recommend the Pixel as one of the best phones this season, and probably all year. I'm Stephen Shank with PhoneArena. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos.